Known as one of the most impactful animated stories ever told across all of Star Wars, the fan base gives Rebels the most accolades. It often surpasses even Star Wars The Clone Wars as a fan favorite. It's no surprise, however, due to the depth of the characters by which Dave Filoni tells his story. As we anxiously await Star Wars Ahsoka, easily touted as the fifth season of Rebels, what makes this show so special to fans?
And we're back. And how many of you guys have actually seen Star Wars Rebels? I mean, not you don't feel forced. Don't feel bad if you haven't. But how many of you guys have? You have not seen. Have you seen Star Wars: The Clone Wars?
I finished all the episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Okay,
I'm what you call a Clone Wars shill.
Yes.
Which one?
Well, there's a movie. The movie.
The 2003 one.
The 2008.
The 2003 one or the 2008?
2008.
I saw all of them. 2003, 2008, and the movie.
Yeah, the movie.
Yeah, the movie.
The movie was in 2008. Yeah. I loved it. I love the Clone Wars. I still put Rebels at the top. There's just something so great about those characters. I think that what Dave Filoni did with the story of the Rebels was nothing short of like masterpiece. To me, like personally, there is one episode in Rebels called The Jedi Knight that is by far the most gut-wrenching, most beautiful, had me freaking like sobbing tears with like a box of tissues, right? Like I'm just like that episode was chef's kiss. It was masterpiece. It was really beautiful. And there's just never been anything like it in Star Wars to me. Period. Like I'm talking like it surpasses like the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, certainly the sequel trilogy, and most of the shows that I've seen. That episode was just beautiful. And the stories, I think one of the things about Rebels is these rebels are bounded together by like this common cause. But I think what they find in each other is much more beautiful. Because they really do, like, Rebels really does focus on the concept of found family, right? The family you choose as your own, rather than the family you're born into, right? And I think that's really what happens to all these characters. Kanan Jarrus, Hera Syndulla, Sabine Wren, Seb Aurelius, Ezra Bridger. And Ezra has, this very common storyline because he's like an orphan who's a Force user. Sound familiar? Right? I mean, we've seen it in Anakin, right? We've seen it.
All the best characters are orphans in Star Wars.
Right? Yeah. Amen, right?
Yeah.
And so we have Anakin who was that. We have Luke who was that. We have Leia who was that. Even though Leia was placed into a very, very affluent family, but she was an orphan and she's a Force user. And then you have Rey, right? All of those are kind of tied together. So I'm really interested in seeing how Star Wars Ahsoka, this is really going to be a live action 5th season of this show. It's definitely, I've been privy to see a few episodes. But
of course you have.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And it's really, really good. Like really, really good. And I just thought, what an amazing show. The story. And then there's like this little love story that happens too in it, between Hera Syndulla and Kanan Jarrus. It's like the Jedis, and this actually harkens a little bit to Cal Kestis too, where you have a Jedi who's like so devoted to this this religion, basically, because that's really what the Jedi Order is. This religion, and so like committed to it, but then figures out, well, all of that is gone now. I can kind of, let it go. And Canon, he lets that go, and he falls in love with Harrison Dula, and we kind of see them become the mom and dad of this little band of orphans, basically, right? I mean, Savine's not an orphan, but she just like vehemently rejects her upbringing and her the shape of what her family envisions for her. She just rejects that all and goes to try to find her own path. I think, how does that turn, like, how does a common cause make people kind of turn into this concept of a found family? I mean, anyone can jump in on that, but like, I feel like even for Finn, there's a lot of that in the fact that he kind of runs right into his found family. So how does like a common cause pull them together so that they're, so bonded together as like this family unit?
Well, really, like Ray, Finn, and Poe, they're all fighting for the same thing, and essentially, like they all hold like very similar values, and this entire cause basically brings them together as one big unit, and that causes them to feel a sense of camaraderie that they probably would have otherwise not have felt if they weren't in this like high stress situation.
Yeah,
Totally.
I feel that way too. I feel like also for Zori, I mean, she's, kind of been the majority of her original found family is gone, like in an instant, blown up, and she just has a few of the folks that were off world with her. The Hessian brothers, Babu Frick. Like, there's a few of them there. We'll introduce them later, but I'll leave. But, she kind of has to start over in trying to make a family for herself. What are your thoughts, Taylor?
Well, I think now that she's joined the rebellion, she will definitely create those special bonds, because she'll be a part of those unique experiences and share them, and support all of those people that are also supporting her.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then I have another question also is around Harrison Dula and Kanan Jarrus. Obviously Hera is a Twi'lek, and Kanan Jarrus is a human, and so they kind of become romantically intertwined, and they're coming from different species. And I don't think a lot of people really realize that what George Lucas and well, he was a mentor at that point. He wasn't really directly involved with Rebels, but he was absolutely still very much guiding Dave Filoni through that story. But Dave Filoni and George both, really speak to interracial relationships. And I mean, there was a time in our country where it was illegal to marry a man or a woman of a different race or different skin color, right? And so they kind of speak a little bit about that in putting Hera and Kanan together without it being so blatantly in your face, right? Like they're not trying to do that, but like, how does that speak to modern times, presented through the lens of Star Wars?
Yeah, I didn't even notice, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even think about it personally.
Yes.
I was just watching it and watching them canoodle. It's like, didn't even think about it until you posed that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, isn't it wild to think that there was laws against love at one point, or even gender-based laws?
Yep.
And now we're so...
Move the needle forward.
Thank God,
Yep.
like we got smarter.
Yeah, we got
And so
smarter.
Love is love.
And more accepting.
Yeah.
We got a long way to go, though.
We do.
Yeah, very long way.
We definitely do. And I think there's still so many people who kind of look at a black man and a white woman being together as like off-putting. Like there's still people who actually believe that, right? Like they should be together, like you know, or vice versa. You know, an Asian person with a white person, or you know, like it's shocking to me that this is still going on in many instances, and there's still a lot of not just you know against coupling, right, but just racism in general. And I think that, you know, to speak a little bit about that, I don't want to get too political about it, but like I would say that there's been kind of a resurgence of a lot of those issues have been kind of resurgent back up in the world in the last, you know, maybe 6-7 years, right? Where we really start to see people who, and then you're just like, wow, were you hiding your real feelings this whole time?
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So
They're hiding in plain sight.
hiding in plain sight, right? Yep. And I feel like that's kind of like we've seen, and there's so much of Star Wars that actually speaks to that kind of stuff that's really crazy, because you don't see, you know, it's not in your face like with Leia, right?
Totally.
Yeah, it's not in your face.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about Rebels, but speaking as a Clone Wars shill, it's a lot. It happens a lot in Clone Wars where the clones were basically seen as objects. They're basically just seen as tools, and you know but they're also capable of caring. There was an episode where the clone troopers, they started to care about the other Twi'leks in Ryloth, I believe that episode was.
That was like a 4-episode arc.
In Ryloth, and then they really show that these people care. These people are human, even though they can be bred in like a tank, but they are not. They are men. They are not. They're not just tools.
Yes.
I want to tangent. I want to dovetail a bit to Hera and Kanan. You know, I have not finished Rebels. I am very well familiar with the characters though.
Okay.
And you know, I think what's really cool about this is that they have a kid, don't they? I think I read that somewhere. I think what's cool about this is that even if they won't be able, even through the lens of Star Wars, even though we're talking about racism and all that, I feel like even though it won't convince those people that made up their mind, I feel like because Rebels came out for my generation, I was like 14 years old or 12 years old when Rebels came out.
Yeah.
So at that age, you know, kids are starting to see Star Wars with this kind of content, with these kinds of stories, where the friendship between Hera and Kanan grow so naturally that I think the next generation, like when they see stories like this, especially through a world like Star Wars, it'll feel so natural to them. They won't even question it. Like, this feels natural. This feels normal, and I think that's the best thing anyone could ask for. Just convince the people that, you know, there's nothing wrong with this. This is a beautiful story about friendship and love that's developed through being in a foxhole together, and you know how being in a foxhole together can develop the strongest relationships too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also just the plight of Ezra Bridger, right? Like as an orphan, and him, becoming Kanan Jarrus's basically Padawan, right? For all intents and purposes, and he develops a very close relationship with Sabine Wren as well, and I think that being able to see, like, for a kid who lost his parents so young, being able to see the love between Hera and Kanan is a well, I can do this too. It's kind of like almost like a permission for him to be like, okay, well, this seems very normal to me. Look, they love each other. So, for me, it's not going to matter what the differences between, between people are, right? They're just people that you can love. And how does that, that gravitation, I want to say it's almost like, why does that trope of the orphan, right? That's a force user. Why does that trope really seem to resonate in Star Wars? It's used so much. Why do you think that Star Wars writers, including George Lucas, gravitate to that trope, that story?
I almost think it's because of all the things and tragedies that can happen in a person's life.
Yeah.
Oh, good point, Tom Jr. Jackson. Good point.
Yes.
But of any tragedy to come in your life, losing your both parents and being an orphan, in my opinion, is one of the worst tragedies that can happen to a person at almost any age, but especially
At a young age,
people.
yes.
That's such an early part of their lives.
Yeah.
And it shows that, like, no matter what, these young orphans have had to overcome this, and they can still be effing awesome and fighters and warriors, and they're not wallowing in self-despair, even when they could be, because this shitty thing happened to them early in life, but they're not. And I think George Lucas and his writing team does such a great job of being like, look at all the shit these people have had to deal with, but they're still fighting.
They're still
for
fighting.
that greater
Yeah.
good.
They're still fighting for that.
They're
They're
in it-
still kicking.
in it together, and where else can we find a family? Okay, we don't have our birth, but where else can we
Yeah.
find our home base?
Yes. Yes. And I think Rebels does that so well. So well.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
I'm going to
Yeah.
ask one last question. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like this. I don't know if this is a hot take. This was a hot take when The Last Jedi came out, where I think that Rey being no one was actually a cool thing to do.
Me too.
Yes.
Because yeah,
Me
oh
too.
okay. Yeah, I think we did talk about this before,
You did.
Mary.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought at the time it was a hot take, but I think people started to lean on the idea, and I think
Yeah,
it's
no,
like
I love
you
that.
can you can come from nothing and still be somebody. I
Yeah.
think that's
She
why
started
George
from the
Lucas-
bottom.
I think that's
Yeah.
why
Now
George
she's here.
Lucas. Yeah, exactly. I think that's why George Lucas and the rest of the writers.
I
really
was,
like the idea.
you know, I was privy to some of the changes that happened in episode 9 in regards to that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, episode 9, it's no surprise to anyone that sees us here today or any of our cast and crew that for me personally, I hate that movie. Listen, I'm a big fan of J.J. Abrams. I'm actually a big fan. But I also know that J.J. was really under the gun and under the foot and under the thumb of Bob Iger.
Careful, Marie. We might go for another hour. If we talk about this.
He was, one of the biggest things about it was, they only gave J.J. Abrams 3 months to write that script after Colin Trevorrow exited the project. And he really, and he asked for more time. He asked for more time in both those movies. So episode 7 and episode 9. He was like, we need more time to flesh this out. And both times. And Rian Johnson also asked for more time. And all 3 of those movies and those 2 directors were denied that. Right. The story would have been very, very different had JJ been allowed to have full reign over what he wanted to do with episode 9, which, included leaving Ben alive. Okay.
Oh.
And included, Ben actually turning earlier in the movie. He turns back to the light, reunites with his mother, and fights with the resistance against Snoke. But because Snoke was killed off in episode 8, they had no villain. And, Bob Iger was like, well, let's finish it up with who we started it with, because Bob Iger isn't a creative person at all and shouldn't have said shit.
Zip it, Bob.
But Zip it, Bob. I mean, I could say so many things about Zip it, Bob now. I mean, with his stupid comments about the actor strike. Oh my God, I wanted to die.
Yeah.
But it was just a travesty. And then of course, JJ gets. I mean, and that as a director, right? You get the praise, but you also get the booze, and you get like the hate from a lot of people, and a lot of people really didn't like that specific fact that Rey was made a Palpatine rather than staying as a nobody. That was something that a a lot of people didn't like. But I mean, the poor guy was left with nothing. Episode 8 was pretty much like written like it was the end of the trilogy. Like, really honestly, like, Rian Johnson didn't care that his movie was a middle movie. He said it. He said it. He's like, oh no, I wrote my movie to be the end cap. I'm like, but you're not the end cap. Like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
So it's just it was crazy times, but yeah, absolutely. So I think that we're gonna ask one more question of everybody here, especially if you have seen the show or if you know about the characters of Rebels. Which one of them is your favorite and why? Anybody can jump in.
Oh god, I like Ezra. Like, you just feel so damn bad for him. He has that Jedi mentality. Like, oh crap, this was really, I had a shit deal, but let's just keep fighting. I don't know. I just loved it. But he was like, he had that in him. But then he was taught that by his new family, and you just couldn't help but just love the little guy.
Yeah, he's a great character.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Does Ahsoka count? I know
Yes.
I've seen the episode. I've seen the episodes where she's there. Honestly, I skipped a bunch of the Clone Wars references. That's the one I jumped off of. But I would say Ahsoka is my favorite character, even coming from the Clone Wars. Because when I was a kid, I saw the movie when I was really young, the Clone Wars movie, and I was surprised when I grew up to find out that no one liked her at all. And then I love what they did with her over the years, and even especially in Rebels when she comes into her own, and just that awesome fight against Darth Vader. Spoilers. It's been years now. But that awesome fight against Darth Vader was just so heart-wrenching for me, and it's amazing to see how strong she's become, and at the same time how much individuality has come into her away from the Jedi Order. I think that was a fantastic way to cap off her character.
So
Can't wait for Ahsoka.
Sharon's favorite character is Seb Aurelius. So she chooses Seb. Anybody else have any favorites from Rebels?
Well, after watching that summary video that you gave us, Maria, I was really liking Kanan in there.
That's my favorite.
That character development was just really interesting and captivating. And then when I saw how it ended, like, I'd never watched any of that, and I only saw that 1 hour video, but I really enjoyed that ending, and it actually kind of got me teary-eyed a bit. I was like, why is this happening? Like, I never really got connected with these characters, but I was really invested.
Yeah, no, he is my favorite. Kanan Jarrus is my favorite. I think it's just because you really got to see, like, the whole arc of him, for start to finish. And, I mean, he died before your very eyes. Spoilers! He dies right
I knew that
before,
already, too.
He dies right before your very eyes, and it is absolutely... I'm telling you, that moment for me is the most beautiful moment ever in all Star Wars, hands down, where, in those last few seconds, he's got one hand holding this ball of fire, and he looks back and he sees Hera, and the Force restores his eyesight so that he could see the woman he loves for one last moment. How fucking poetic is that, bro? Like, that shit just, like, it still moves me when I talk about it. It still
It
really
should
moves
be
me.
a psychopath test. Like, if you don't cry at that, you're a psychopath.
That
should be the test.
Yeah. Oh, Tom likes Ezra and Zeb, and was excited to see Zeb in the show. Show up in the Mandalorian season 3. I don't know if you guys caught that.
I missed that. No, I missed it.
Well, Zeb was like, he's I forgot his race. What is his race? I can't remember. So he's a different species. He's not human. So it's not hard to. He's the one that sits next to, the captain, the X-wing pilot, and he comes up next to him in the bar in that scene, and he's like he's got purple skin. He kind of looks like a teddy bear almost, like a really big teddy bear. That's Zeb
Yeah.
Aurelius. Yes, I was so happy about that. Yeah, for sure. Ray Sloan. Oh, she likes the. Yeah. Yeah. She likes the bad girls.
Of course you do, Sharon.
Of course she does, right?
Yeah. You have to.
Yeah, and it's very, very true. Ahsoka is so beloved now. You know, after some time, where
Yeah.
during the movie, nobody liked her. They were like, "Oh, there's this snot-nosed kid," right? Right? And
Yeah.
and then it
I was so surprised by that.
me too, because I really loved the movie. The Clone Wars movie
Yeah.
was one of my favorite movies. I loved it. I thought, what? Anakin has a Padawan? Please, what are you talking about? And I just
Yeah.
thought, wow, what an interesting way of revealing more about his character, Anakin's character, through the eyes of a Padawan. I thought that was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I agree. The
And
bad boy cut helps too. The short hair with Anakin, I like that.
Yes, and then Ashley
And the Jedi
Eckstein.
armor.
Ashley Eckstein bringing Ahsoka to life. I mean, you gotta love
Yeah.
her. What an incredible voice actress. I mean, she is the queen. Bow down. I mean, I love her so much. She's so great.